You're listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe of Torch in Houston, Texas. This is the Thinking Talmudist podcast.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Thinking Talmudist. It's so wonderful to be here. And today we're going to learn a new piece of Talmud from Tractate Ketubot, or Ketubos, which is going to talk to us a little bit about how to give charity. What are our values when we talk about acts of kindness? What's the proper way for us to do these acts? So the Talmud begins on the bottom of 67a. The Talmud starts talking about a story. Okay, Tana Rabbanon. The rabbis taught in a brisa, Yasom v'yisoma shabo lehisparnes, an orphan boy and an orphan girl come before the administrators of the charity fund to be supported, to be fed. First, you support the female orphan, and then you can support the male orphan. He said it's customary for men to go around begging from door to door, but it is not customary for women to do the same. And therefore, out of sensitivity that she's not going to feel comfortable, she'll be embarrassed and humiliated to go knock on doors, we support her first and then the boy. So the Brisa now continues, Yasam v'yisomer, if an orphan boy and an orphan girl come individually for charity funds in order to get married, not to each other, so different, a bride getting married and a groom getting married. So who do you support first? Messina siyasoma, v'achakach messina siyasom. First, we marry off the orphan girl, and only afterwards do we marry off the orphan boy. Mipnei shebushasa shel isha meruba mishel ish. Why? Because the sensitivity of shame of a woman is greater than the sensitivity to shame of a man. So Gemara now recites a related brisa. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taught in a brisa, Yasam shebalisa, when an orphan boy comes for charity funds in order to get married, he needs help. Sochron lo bayis, we rent a house for him, umetzion lo mita, v'chol klei tashmisha. We support him with the bed, buying him beds, and with all the furnishings required for him to use. Ve'achar kach mesian lo isha, and afterwards we marry off a wife for him. Okay, so we find him first. Why? Shenemar de machsora she'ach salo, because there's a verse in Deuteronomy in the Torah that tells us as follows: open up your hand and provide for the extent of his needs whatever is lacking for him. Whatever is lacking for him. That's what you need to give him. So people ask, how much charity do I have to give him? I don't have to give anything. But the Torah says the proper amount is not what you want to give. It's what they're lacking. It's what they're lacking. It's very different. Usually it doesn't match up what we want to give and what they're lacking. Okay, and the Gemara now is going to go into details of how sensitive we need to be in this regard. De machsoro ze habayis asher yechsar ze mito v'shulchan lo zo isha v'chein hu omer e'esa lo ezer kenegdo. See, he says as follows. The verse states de machsoro, the extent of his needs, that refers to his house. Machsoro zebayis, the extent of his needs refers to his house. Asher yechsar lo, asher yechsar zu mito v'shulchan, what is lacking, which is what the verse says, right, is referring to the bed and the table, and lo, to him, is referring to a wife. Why? Because that's exactly the same term that is used with regarding to Adam, when it says, Ki lo asher e'eseh lo ezer kenegdo. I will make for him, when it's referring to, when you see the word lo, it's referring to finding a wife for him. Asher yechsar lo is finding a wife for him. So then Hashem, God, fashioned the side that he had taken from the man into a woman, and he brought her to the man. Okay, so Asher yechsar lo is teaching us these things. I will just tell you that there's a special mitzvah of helping a couple get married. All right, not only financially, but also suggesting ideas. If you see a guy, you see a girl that they're wanting to settle down, it's proper for us to make suggestions for them. Make a suggestion so that you can bring them together. So let me tell you a quick story. What happened is that I was just randomly caring about my own business, right? Just doing my own thing, and I get a phone call. I get a phone call from a friend of mine from Moscow, and he tells me that we were together in yeshiva many years ago, and he tells me, I have a daughter, she's dating, and there's somebody that we have our eye on for our daughter. I ask him who. He says it's actually someone that you know. So I said, okay, I know the family well. I think they're excellent people. I tell him all about them. And he says, would you do us the favor and recommend it to them? I said, absolutely. So I did so. And then they, at first, I don't know, maybe this shouldn't be public on a thing. At first, one of the sides, looking into it a little bit, they're like, well, I don't know if we're so interested. Maybe not. And I'm like, you should probably take a look at this seriously. I think this is a really good idea for your son, your daughter, whatever. And then I didn't really hear back from them much. I did get information. They told me that they decided that they were going to start dating. And I got a phone call this week that they're getting engaged. Sure. So my wife says, did you make the shidduch? I said, I don't know if I made the shidduch. I don't know if anybody makes a shidduch. My mother was a shadchan. Okay, she still is, and she made hundreds of matches. And the amazing thing about her is that my mother wouldn't brag about it. So if you weren't the first phone call that came in right after she found out, she would never tell you. She would never tell you. She is very, very humble, very, very modest, and very discreet. She wouldn't share, these things. But it's a very special thing. So I feel, even if I didn't make the shidduch, which I don't think I did, I don't deserve much credit here. It wasn't my idea. It was like, okay, nudged it along a little bit. But the fact that Hashem put me in a situation where I had one, even if it's one little washer or bolt on that assembly, I'm very, very honored. It's a tremendous mitzvah to help a young man and young woman who are looking for a life partner together. It's a special thing to have a part in it. Okay, so now the Gemara cites another brisa that expounds the same verse. I will tell you though, okay, if we're already talking about this topic, my wife thinks I'm nuts, okay? I'll explain why, okay? I say that no shidduch, no match really makes any sense. Okay, I don't think any husband and wife ever have to make sense. It has to make sense for them. But I have to understand why it makes sense for them. I don't have to understand it. So when I see a guy, I see a girl, put them together. Why not? See my work. It's like a 50% chance as is. Pants, skirt, put them together. And my wife's like, it doesn't work like that. And I'm like, yeah, I think it kind of does. I think, why not? Why? Who thought that my wife and I would be a good idea just by right? Thank God. We're almost 25 years in. But who would have thought? You think somebody thought into it so deeply and knew us so well? This is a great idea. Why is it a good idea better than any other idea? Like who said? Put them together. See, let them figure it out. Now, I did put together, I suggested a friend of mine to a close family friend, a friend of mine from yeshiva and a close family friend. I put them together and they called me back after the first date. They're like, what were you thinking? So it doesn't always work like that, right? Okay, but again, you never know. So that's why I'm like, just give it a shot. Someone who, make a recommendation. It works. Doesn't work, no harm, no foul. Okay, the Gemara cites, that's my opinion on this matter, and that's why my wife thinks I'm totally out of my mind. Okay, the Gemara cites another brisa that expounds on the same verse. Tana Rabbanon. The verse states with regard to assisting the poor, open up your hand and provide for the extent of his needs. Ata mitzuve olav lefarnaso, v'i ata mitzuve olav leashro. He He says the Torah teaches that you are commanded regarding a pauper to support him, to provide him with his basic needs, but you are not commanded to make him rich. So we'll understand this in a minute in a much clearer way. Asher yechsalo, whatever he is lacking, afilu sus lirkov alav ve'eved lorutz lefanov. Even if he is lacking a horse to ride upon and a servant to run before him, you must provide these for him. Amru alav al Hillel Zokin. They said about Hillel the elder, shelokach lo'ani ben tovim echad, that he once took for a pauper from an aristocratic family. Sus lirkov alav ve'eved lorutz lefanov. He got him a horse to ride upon and a servant to run before him. Pam achas lo matzo eved lorutz lefanov. On one occasion, Hillel could not find the servant to run before the pauper. Viratz lefanov sholosh milin, and he himself, Hillel, ran in front of the horse for 3 milin. Imagine like 3 miles. Okay, right? Because this pauper had grown up amidst wealth and had thus become used to very luxurious lifestyle. Okay, so here's what we need to understand about this. Imagine 2 different people, 2 different scenarios. One scenario, you have a person who grew up in a poor home, comes to your doorstep and says, I'm not asking for much. All I need is bread. Bread. I have no money in my bank account, $0 in my bank account. I need bread. Example number 1. Example number 2. This guy didn't come like the other guy, like person number 1, from a poor home. This guy came, he was the former executive of a Fortune 500 company. He used to be driven around by a chauffeur in a Bentley. He used to have custom tailored suits. And he comes to your house. He used to eat caviar and steak and all the wonderful luxuries. He comes to your house and says, I need your help. I have $0 in my bank account. I got fired from my job. My wife left me. Whatever it may be. What is the difference between these 2 people? They both have $0 in their bank account. One doesn't have big ideas. One lived a very modest life, grew up in a poor home. He's not missing high-end 5-star Michelin chef dinners. He's not missing a chauffeur. He's not missing the luxurious life. The other guy, on the other hand, lived in a very luxurious lifestyle. And now he's down to nothing. The difference our Torah teaches us is not in what they have right now. It's in the shame that they carry. This guy used to be chauffeured around, now has to go by metro. This guy always went by metro. It's not a difference. For one, he's carrying severe shame, embarrassment. I used to be Mr. Know-it-all, Mr. Have-it-all, and now he resorts to going on the metro. Okay, it's very humiliating for him. So you understand that the level of sensitivity that we need, because we could say, hey, listen, this is what I give. I'm giving you $18 like I gave him, I'm giving you. Very different, says the Talmud. Even if he was accustomed to having a servant running in front of his horse, that's what you need to do. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to go pull out your resources to make him a rich boy. But at the very least, we have to feel their shame. The Torah teaches us what it means to be sensitive. The Torah teaches us what it means to look out for another person. It's like, you know what people say, when the market crashed in 2008, I went to someone's office that I was learning with on a regular basis. Every week I would learn with this guy. He was so devastated. He looked, when I walked in, he looked like a dead person. I'm not kidding you. I said to him, what's going on? What's the matter? Why do you look like this? He says to me, you may never understand what it means to lose $170 million. Now, I can tell that to you, and you'll be like, well, at least you had 170 million, right? That's not everything you had. You probably still have a whole bunch of money. That's not the correct perspective. Oh, I should have that problem. You've all heard people say someone wins the lottery, and then they lose that money. I should have that problem, right? No. You don't understand. You don't understand the challenge. He lost an enormous amount of his wealth. An enormous amount. Whether he was using it to buy houses for vacation homes or using it to give charity, it doesn't make a difference. You understand the trauma it is for him to lose such an enormous amount of money? That's what we need to understand. And that's what the Torah is teaching us. This is a verse in Deuteronomy where the Torah is teaching us exactly how we need to conduct ourselves. Ki patoach tiftach. This is chapter 15, verse number 8 in Deuteronomy. All right, so what does the verse say here? Ki patoach tiftach es yadecha lo v'ha'abei tabitenu de machsoro asher yechsar lo. Rather, you shall surely open your hand to him. You shall surely lend him sufficient for his need, whatever is lacking to him. Whatever is lacking to him. The Torah is teaching us sensitivity. The Torah is teaching us how to conduct our lives. Even when you're the giver, you have to know how to give. You have to understand what their needs are. Okay. So the Gemara cites another brisa that expounds the same verse. Right, and that's what we said, that Hillel himself ran in front of the horse for this person. Now, again, the Torah says you have to support him. It doesn't say you have to make him rich. Okay, so that's something to remember. If you're able to give him the Bentley, you're able to give him the chauffeur, you're able to give him that, fine. Great. But if not, at least support him. Understand him is what you need to do. Understand the tragedy that he's experiencing. So the Gemara cites a related brisa. There was once a story that occurred with the people of the Upper Galilee. Ani ben tovim echad mitzipori litra basar b'chol yom, that they brought for a pauper from an aristocratic family from Tzipori a litra of meat each day. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a very big luxury to have meat every day. A litra of meat is a lot. It's several pounds of meat. Yeah, they brought him that every day. Why? From where he comes from, to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a real blow to him. Again, it's relative. It's relative to the individual. So the Gemara asks, Litbor basar or my ribusa? What is so extraordinary about a litra of basar? A piece of meat weighing 14 ounces is not a particularly remarkable quantity for one's daily meal. So what's the big deal? Why is it such a big deal? So the Gemara offers two answers. Amar Rav Huna says, Litra basar mishal ofos. They brought him a litra of fancy fowl meat. The meat of these birds was very expensive. Nevertheless, since he was accustomed to savoring fine foods, the charity fund supplied him with fancy fowl meat rather than other less expensive meat. Okay, so they didn't buy him the cheapest meat, they bought him the best meat. V'bayasema, you can offer a different understanding, belitra basar mamish, that they purchased actual meat, animal meat, with a litra. The meat was so expensive that a day's supply cost them a litra's weight in coins, which is a lot. So imagine, it wasn't a litra value, it was a litra of weight. A litra, let's say, is 14 ounces. 14 ounces weight of coins is what they paid to buy this meat for him, so that he can be at the level that he needed for his sustenance, but his emotional sustenance. for his character sustenance, for his dignity sustenance. The Gemara offers a third answer. Rav Ashi says, what does it mean that they gave a litra of meat? Hasam kfar katan haya. He says it was a small village, and there were few buyers for the remainder of the meat. Hence, each day they had to waste an entire animal on his account just so that he can have his meat. Yet the charity fund shouldered the expense in order to provide the pauper for his daily litra of meat, to which he was accustomed. Okay, the Gemara relates another incident regarding a pauper with expensive tastes, right? Because I remember once someone came over to a person. I was there in the room when the person came over and said, I'm collecting for my family and I. We had some medical things, and now we need to pay off our mortgage. So the person says, "You need to pay off your mortgage? I need to pay off my mortgage. You need to pay off your mortgage. Go get a job." And that's what the person said. It's like, I also need to pay off my mortgage. Should I start collecting money because I need to pay off my mortgage? No, you get a job and support your family. Going collecting is not the thing. Now, is that the right answer? Maybe, maybe not. Every person needs to know what they're dealing with. Why is that something you would go to collect money for? Okay, everyone has to ask their own questions to themselves, but at least to understand the pain that this person must be going through. And I'll be honest with you, when people come to collect here in Houston, something that I try to do is to really, really sit with the people and talk to them. Sit with them and talk to them. Hear their story. Don't just throw money. Even if it's $1, even if it's $1,000. It doesn't make a difference what the amount is. It's about what the Torah is really teaching us here is take the time to understand the other person. Right? Because if these sages wouldn't pay attention to what was going on, they'd say, listen, this is our standard, this is what we give to poor people, now get out. No, they heard the story. They understand where he's coming from. He's coming from a very different place. He has different needs. It's subjective to him, right? So there was a certain pauper who came before Reb Nechemia to be fed. Hahu da'asal l'kamed Reb Nechemia. Amarle b'ma atasoed. Reb Nechemia asked him, on what are you accustomed to dine? Amarle, he said, b'basar shamen v'yayin yashan. Fatty meat and aged wine. Reb Nechemia said to him, are you interested in instead joining me in eating meals of lentils? Because that's what Reb Nechemia was eating. Galgel imo ba'adoshim. Having no choice, the pauper joined him in his meals of lentils. V'meis, and he actually died. The pauper died. Omar o loy lezeh shahargo Nechemia. Woe unto this pauper who Nechemia killed. Rabbi Nechemia felt that he brought about the pauper's death by feeding him simple lentils instead of the fine cuisine to which he was accustomed. And I think more than just the food that he fed him, again, the embarrassment kills more seriously, more painfully than the food. What? Lentils are healthy, right? But still, again, I'm confident that if we look in the commentaries are going to say that he died not as a death of no more pulse, right? We're talking about a no more heartbeat. We're talking about he died an embarrassment. Embarrassment is a terrible thing. It's a devastating thing. Our sages compare it. The Torah compares it to actual death because of the embarrassment spills the blood from the face. You turn pale. You turn white. Your blood is. Our sages compare it to the blood being spilled. Okay, the Gemara asks, Adarabba, to the contrary, he says, on the contrary, it should be woe is to Nechemia that he killed this pauper. So the Gemara says, Elo ihu hu deloi iboyle lifanuke nafshe kulehai. Rabbi Nechemia was not responsible for his death. Rather, the pauper caused his own demise, since he should not have pampered himself so much. He should not have ingrained within himself such an intense dependence upon delicacies. I'll actually tell you an interesting story. So when my father, like literally the rawest nerve you can touch with my father is the nerve of luxury. We grew up so against luxury. Whether my parents had or didn't have, whether they could afford or not afford, you knew no different. It was simple life. We were the happiest family. We had the nicest house. It wasn't. Okay? But that's the way we felt. That's the way we felt. And that's the way we grew up. It was like our home is the nicest home in the world. We don't need to look at anybody's house. I remember one time a neighbor came to us and said, maybe you should consider painting the outside of your house. It's like, it looks like the paint is peeling. And I remember my father said, if it bothers you, you can paint it. I look out and I see your house and it's a beautiful house. It's perfect, right? You're looking at my house. It bothers you, so you paint it, right? But the truth is that we never looked outside. We never looked at what the neighbor had. We never looked. We were conscientious about not poking out the neighbor's eyes. When you buy a car, to be thoughtful of that. So I'll tell you, it's a true story. When I moved back from Israel, my wife and I, we needed a car. And I figured the best car for us would be like a Toyota Camry. So I called every dealership on the East Coast, and I said, any used cars, this is my budget, this is what I have to spend. Any used cars, used Camry at this price range. Asking. I get a phone call one night, like at 9 o'clock at night, from a car dealer. He says to me, you called me. I have a Lexus that's being traded in right now. It was just dropped off. It wasn't even dropped off yet. It's at the lady's house. First owner, it's 9 years old, mint condition. If you come right now with the exact money I had to spend, you come right now, it's yours. If you even wait till tomorrow morning, the price will maybe double. It's yours if you take it right now. I said, fine. I drive down there to South Jersey, and I go, and this car, I turn on that engine. It sounds like it's in a dealership. This car was every oil change, exactly 3,000 miles. It was like clockwork. Now, it was like a brand new car. It was like a gift from Hashem. One problem with the car. One problem. What was the problem with the car? Well, that was one thing. It was too fancy. It was a Lexus, right? Nope. It had a dent. The entire side of one side of the thing was the right side or the left side of the car. The entire, from the front wheel to the back wheel, had a major dent. The lady probably drove into one of those Ballards, right? She drove right into it, scratched the entire side of the car. I said, now I want it. Now I want it. And I had that car. I had it for almost 10 years. I had that car. And I remember I had people when I lived here in Houston. First I lived in Bridgeport, then we lived here. I had people literally call me up and say, Rabbi, please do me a favor. Take your car to my auto body shop. I will pay for it. But that's such an eyesore. That's such an eyesore. You can't be driving like that with that dent in the whole side of the car. It was like one good line. It was like a good deep line from one side to the other. Okay, I never did. But my father was very disappointed when he saw the car. He's like, are you crazy? Like, again, this is like against his whole fabric of who he is. Like, when you're crazy, you buy a Lexus. Are you crazy? What are you, one of those fancy people? So, relating to this Gemara, I want to give you what my brother-in-law told me. I said to my brother-in-law, I said, I don't understand. What's he so worked up? It's like, I paid for it nothing. I paid for it, like, not nothing. I paid for it with it was exactly what my budget was. By the way, the guy called me back a week later, the dealership. He said, I'll buy it back for almost double what you paid. I'll buy it back. I said, no, thank you, I appreciate it, but no. All right, but my brother-in-law said, the problem is not that you have this car. The problem is that you're going to get used to a certain standard of luxury that now you can't go down from it. That's a problem. It was, but it didn't make a difference. It didn't make a difference. The idea that you don't want to get yourself up to a certain standard, and that's what the Gemara here is commenting about this individual. The Gemara is commenting, he should not have pampered himself so much. He should not have ingrained within himself such an intense dependence upon delicacies. This is the challenge, is that when a person starts upping their standards, so now I can't go down from that standard. Right? And by the way, just because it's a good price, one thing, just because it's a good price, and just because it's an old car, it doesn't mean anything. Let me ask you a question. If someone gave you a gift of an old 20-year-old Rolls Royce, would you drive it? No. I'll tell you, the answer is no. I know, but I'm just saying it's different. Just because I got it for free, I got a steal of a deal, you're still not going to be driving around in a Rolls Royce, okay? Because there's certain standards that you don't want to, right? Yes. I am Jewish, but I'm also a pragmatist. And I knew that it was too good of a deal that I would have not been able to find a suitable car, even with the money he was giving back to me. I would not be able to. He just did it because for him, he probably made $500. He's like, I didn't even need to touch it. I don't need to register it. I don't need to do all of the pay the taxes, nothing. So he just for him, it was just a clean, quick profit. But again, the idea behind this is let's not lose sight of luxuries can do damage. Yes, it's very nice to have luxuries. It does damage because we become accustomed to them. And then look at our children today. Our generation, they're living in unbelievable luxuries, our children. They have phones that have technology. They have computers that have, the technology is unbelievable of what children have. The access, the plenty. And yet, children are not happier than they were 50 years ago. They're not. They're much more medicated, right, doctor? So now the Gemara relates another incident involving a pauper who had developed a desire for fine foods. There was a certain pauper that came before Rava to be fed. Rava said to him, Amarlo, B'ma ata soed, what are you accustomed to dining with? Amarlo, he said to him, B'tarnagoles ptuma v'yayin yoshan, on a fattened hen and aged wine. Amar le, Rava responded to him, V'lo chayshat leduchka de tzibura. Are you not concerned about imposing hardship on the community who would be paying for your expensive tastes? Amar le, the pauper replied, Atu mididhu ka'achilna. Am I eating that from that which is theirs? I am eating from that which belongs to the merciful one. Midirachmana ka'achilna. I'm eating from God's. The Tanina, because we learn in the Brisa, the eyes of all look to you with hope, and you give them each their food in their time. Bi'itam lo nemar. It doesn't say in their time. It says bi'ito, in his time. What does that mean? It teaches us that the Holy One, blessed is He, furnishes the provisions of each individual in His proper time. Adahachi asoi achose dirava delo chazile tleisa. See, at that point, Rava's sister, who had not seen him for 13 years, came by. Ve'asile tarnagolas ptuma v'yayin yashan. And she was so excited to see her brother, so she brought him a great gift. What do you think she brought him? A fattened hen and aged wine. Amar Rava, noting this extraordinary turn of events, exclaimed, "My dekama, what is this that has happened before my eyes?" Amar le, ne'nesi lach kum echol. Rava turned to the pauper and said to him, "I said too much when I criticized you. Come, rise and eat with me." And they had fattened hen and old aged wine. So you see that, yes, indeed, right? Hashem gives every person. We are not here to criticize people. It's not our place to tell people how they should live their lives, what luxuries are tolerable, what luxuries are not tolerable, how a person should. That's not our place. Again, for ourselves, it's a worthwhile message that the Talmud is teaching us to ensure that a person does not accustom themselves to too high a standard. Don't get caught up in that. It's not a good thing for a person to do. Okay, so now the Gemara turns to the topic of how charity should be dispensed without offending those who will receive it. Tana Rabbanon, the rabbis taught in a brayso, ein lo ve'eino rotze lehisparnes. If one does not have the means to support himself, but does not want to be supported by the charity funds, he's humiliated. I have to come to take out a loan. I have to come to ask for the community for charity. I have to come onto an organization that's going to help feed my family for Shabbos. He says that the Torah teaches us that first give it to them as a loan, and then we turn around and give it to them as a gift. We do not attempt to collect the payment from him. Okay? So this is what the Torah's solution is. First, give it to them as a loan, and then never ask them for the money back. And that way, you gave the charity, and they don't know it's charity. They think it's a loan that they haven't yet repaid, whatever, but at least it keeps their dignity. Divi Rabbi Meir, that's what Rabbi Meir says. Chachamim say, Nosin lo l'shum matana v'chrozim v'nosin lo l'shum halva. We give him the necessary funds as a gift, and then we turn around and give them to him as a loan. Okay, we give it to him as a gift, and then we give it to him as a loan. So in general, I've had people call me on how they should give charity, and one specific individual called and said, someone just called me to ask me for, I think it was a $5,000 loan. He says, I know that they will not be able to repay me. I know that they won't. I said, are you willing to give it to them as charity? He says, yes, so let them ask for charity. Why are they asking for a loan? I said, because they have a dignity. And it's hard for someone to ask for charity for that kind of money. He said, if you're able to give it and you don't need it back, then give it to them in the name of a loan just to protect their dignity. So that they don't feel that they're a pauper. Say, it's a loan. No. I'm not giving it to you. I'm giving it to you. It's a loan. Meanwhile, your intention is, now, in general, I tell people that when you loan someone money, don't ever expect it back. Now, sad reality, that if someone borrows money, it's a responsibility to pay it back. I had a person once, I borrowed, I didn't mean to buy, I didn't want to borrow it. What happened was, it was many, many years ago, it was at least 15 years ago. And Torch was having a difficult time. And this guy happens to ask me, he says, how are things going there? I said, it's rather difficult. See, he says, what's going on? I told him what was going on. I was behind on payroll. Thank God, I don't think it's happened since, but Baruch Hashem. So he says to me, he says, that's terrible. You can't do that. He says, how much are you behind? I told him how much I was behind. So he says, that's unacceptable. Give me a minute. He goes out of his office, and he comes back, and he gives me a check. He says, this is a loan. You have to pay your people on time. Take it. I said, I don't know if I can accept loans. I don't like loans. So he says, okay, you'll pay it back when you pay it back. So I came back a few weeks later, and I started paying back the loan. Giving him payments, and then a few weeks later, I gave him another payment, and a few weeks later, I gave him another payment. And he said to me, I appreciate that you started repaying the loan. He says, it's the first time that I've ever given someone a loan that they pay me back. He says, now the rest is for you, the donation to the organization, and you can keep the rest of it as a donation. I'm so grateful that you came to repay the loan. I think in general, a person needs to be responsible. You borrow money, you need to return the money. Now, if you have a kind person who loans you the money, you may not need it back now. It may take some time, and they can be understanding of that if they don't need it, if it's not pressing. But and that a person needs to be grateful for, but never to think that it's not a loan. It's a loan. You borrow money, you have to return the money. That's what Hashem wants us to do. But again, as the person who's the giver, you have to understand that if the person doesn't have the money, don't put all your bets on it, and definitely don't loan out money that's going to take away your dinner for your family. Okay, so if you have, only loan the amount that you're able to part with. Generally speaking, like the Hebrew Free Loan Association, which does great work in the community, they need to. It's not an issue of only collateralization. It also is that they need references, and they need someone who's going to vouch because they need to know who it is that, that you're a very fine person. I know that, but they don't. They're sitting in an office, somebody who doesn't really know per se who you are and that you're credible. The Gemara now interprets its citation of the Brisa to ask, L'shum matana. The sages said that we should first give him the charity funds as a gift. Halo shakil. But we're discussing a case where he won't take a gift as charity. Right? He won't take the gift because he's going to be embarrassed. So we're going to give it to him as a loan. So what's going on? So Amar Rava, the Gemara explains, Liftach lo l'shum matana. The sages mean that we should begin by offering it to him, just take it as a gift. And if he refuses, then we offer it to him as a loan. So fine, so it's not a gift, it's a loan, it's fine, perfect. So the Gemara returns its citation of the Brisa, Yeshlo ve'eno rotze lisparnes, regarding one who has the means to support himself, but does not want to support himself, wishing instead to be supported by the charity funds. That is, he afflicts himself with starvation rather than spend his own money on food. We give him money from the charity fund as a gift, and then turn around and collect the money from him. So like this, there's some people who, nebuch, sadly, have an unhealthy reality that they live in. They don't want to spend money on themselves. They're miserly on themselves. So we'll give him a matana, it's a gift, and then they collect it back from him. The Gemara interrupts its citation of the Brisa to ask, Chozim from him, what do you mean? You're coming back to collect it from him? But once he sees that we do this, the ruse will no longer be effective. Sulo shakil. You won't be able to come and take charity from us anymore. The Gemara explains, Amarav Papa, la'achar misa, after his death, after he passes away, we will collect from his estate. So the Gemara returns to the citation of the Brisa. Reb Shimon says, Yeshlo ve'eno rotze lihisparnes. If one has the means to support himself but does not want to support himself, we do not become involved with him. I'm sorry, if you have money, you need to spend your own money. The congregation the community does not have to support you when you have money. Yeah, I don't want to pull it out of my 401k. I don't want to pull it out of my investments. I don't want to, right? That's unacceptable. And we don't want to get involved with him. If he does not have the means to support himself, but does not want to be supported through charity, Omrim lo have mashkon v'tol. What we tell him is, give us a security, give us a collateral, and take the money. Kedei shetazuach dato alav, so that his mind should be confident that this transaction is actually a loan. So now that we're holding his collateral, he feels like it's a loan, and that way he's willing to accept that. The Gemara cites a brisa that discusses the scriptural source for this, and now we're going to talk about a story, an amazing story. The Gemara relates an incident regarding an Amora who was careful not to embarrass the recipient of his charity. Mar Ukva hava ani b'shabu vusei. Mar Ukva had a pauper in his neighborhood whom he supported, but the pauper did not know who the benefactor was. And this is called matan beseter, to give it in hiding, that the person doesn't know who is the giver. There's another level where the giver doesn't even know who the recipient is. Okay, we'll talk about that a different time. The have a rogil koyoma de shadile arba o zuze bitzinor de dasha. For every day, Mar Ukva was accustomed to toss 4 zuzim in the socket of the pauper's door when he was not there. So he would slip a few dollars under his door, and the pauper wouldn't know. Yom echad amar. One day the pauper said to himself, Ezil echaze man ka'avid bi hahutivusa. I want to go and I want to find out who is giving me this kindness, who's putting money under my door every single day that I can support myself. That day Mar Ukva was delayed at the study hall. Asya de bisu bahadei, his wife, who was privy to Mar Ukva's charitable custom, accompanied him on the way to the pauper's house. Kevon de chazyuha dika matzli le. As soon as the pauper saw Mar Ukva was slanting the door's pivot, to place the money in the socket. Nafak basrayu. He went out after them. Rahut mikamei. They ran away from him to keep Mar Ukva's identity secret and thus spare the pauper from shame. Aile lahu atuna dehavi grufonora. Eventually, to escape the pauper, they're running down the block. Imagine Mar Ukva and his wife are running down the block away from this guy so that he not be embarrassed. Mar Ukva and his wife entered a certain oven with coals that had been removed, but which was still burning hot, and they sat inside it. Havaka mekalyon kar'e de Mar Ukva. Mar Ukva's feet had become burnt. Amrulei de Bisu, his wife, whose feet were not affected, said to him, Shkol kar'ech oisiv akare. Take your feet and place them upon my feet. Cholash daite. Mar Ukva felt dejected. Our sages say, seeing that his merits were inferior to hers. Amrulei, his wife said to him, Ana shechichna begavei debeso umikarva ahan yose. He says, I am generally present in the house where the paupers can find me easily, and also the benefit they derive from my charity is immediate because I feed them food right away. When the poor people come to the house and I feed them food, they eat. So my charity benefits them immediately. He says, but yours, they still need to go to the marketplace, they need to buy the ingredients, they need to cook the food. So it's not as direct of a impact, the charity that I give. Therefore, I had more merits than you because my charity affected them immediately and yours wasn't. But what in the world just happened here? What in the world just happened here? Here you see, and this is a very famous Talmud, an important Talmud for us to remember, they ran into a burning oven. They ran into a burning oven, not to embarrass this poor person. So the Gemara asks, Umay kulehai, what in the world? Such an extreme action for what? Why are they jumping into a burning oven? Why did they have to flee from him to hide inside an oven? The Gemara answers, the Amar Marzutra bar Tuvia Amar Rav. Marzutra explained, the son of Tuvia, said in the name of Rav, Ve'amru la Amar Rav Huna bar Bizna Amar Rab Shimon Chasida. And others say that it was Rav Huna, the son of Bizna, who said in the name of Rab Shimon Chasida. V'amar la Amar Rab Yochanan Mishum Rab Yochanan Rab Shimon ben Yochi. Right? Who's Rab Shimon ben Yochai? Right? That's our sage from Lag BaOmer that we just passed. Some say that it was Rab Yochanan who said it in the name of Rab Shimon ben Yochai. Noach lo la'adam sheyimsor atzmo l'toch kivshon eish ve'an yalbin pnei chaver barabim. It is better for a person should surrender himself to a fiery furnace than to shame his fellow in public. Minalan, and where do we know this from? Mitamar, we see this from Tamar, the woman who had relations with Yehuda, and Yehuda was ready to kill her. She didn't say, excuse me, I recognize you, you're the guy. That's not what she said. What did she say? She takes out the stick and she says, whoever left this stick, this is the person that impregnated me. He understood and he said, yes, and that's why he's called Yehuda, because he was modeh. He admitted his guilt and he said, that was me. And I did that. But she didn't want to embarrass him. So she didn't. She was ready to be put to death and not embarrass him. So next week, God willing, we'll continue more with the stories of charity. But I think that we need to understand the power that the Torah is so concerned about a person's dignity. The Torah is so concerned about a person being embarrassed. What? I'm doing a good deed. I'm doing a good deed. I'm doing an act of kindness. I'm giving charity. I'm giving them money. I'm supporting them. I need to worry. Let them worry. Don't embarrass them. Don't embarrass them. It's better to throw yourself into a fiery furnace and burn your feet off than to embarrass someone in public. What an unbelievable teaching of the Torah. The Torah doesn't want us humiliating another person, even if you're right. You have an argument with someone in politics, which is very common today. No need to embarrass, no need to call names. Even if they're wrong, even if they're dead wrong, it doesn't make a difference. We need to do everything we can not to embarrass another person. My dear friends, have an amazing Shabbos.
You've been listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe on a podcast produced by Torch, the Torah Outreach Resource Center of Houston. Please help sponsor an episode so we can continue to produce more quality Jewish content for our listeners around the globe. Please visit torchweb.org to donate and partner with us on this incredible endeavor.